You know, there's a fundamental issue around employability which is driven by the effectiveness of our education system. Despite a lot of noise and discussion, that really hasn't changed fundamentally in any way. So the quality of teachers, how much they're paid, the quality of our curriculum, the lack of connection between education and employers and industry is immense. And therefore, certain pockets have done well. You know, in the past, engineering schools and others used to do very, very well. But the fact is, those demands are also going to go down because that growth is no longer linear, you know, per head count. Other things haven't changed. I am very hopeful that this new government, with its new focus on skills and training, is going to change the public-private model, really make it effective. You know, for it to be effective, the people who are going to work with the institution need to have the ability to be able to change those institutions, change teachers if necessary, improve the curriculum. And there's still too much government oversight on these things. So I think freeing up the educational system from, not all, but some of the constrictions that they suffer from would be very important. Two, far stronger industry participation. You know, what is being taught in colleges today is too old. It's not relevant for today's industry. And therefore, when employees come out of those colleges and they hit the workforce, they're singularly unprepared for the demands of what is required. And that, I think, makes the entire process of employability very difficult. Three is skills. Additional vocational and other skills training is critical, because that's really how countries like China and Germany and America have overcome this issue of employability, by creating a path for vocational skills which is very strong, well established, and provides great careers. And I think those three things are very, very important. Last one I would add is we need to take the quality of our teachers up. I think we should pay them more, we should have better quality, I think we should look after them better so that they are really relevant and knowledgeable in terms of their experience base of what they try to teach. I think companies are fundamentally in the business of doing, colleges and education systems are in the business of creating employable graduates. Companies are in the business of making cars or, you know, mobile phones or delivering IT services. So I think the culpability is less. Having said that, companies have not invested enough time and effort to work with the educational system, to explain what they need, to help them with curriculum, to help them with change. And I think I agree with you on that point, because in the ITES area, certainly we've made huge investments in those areas, including putting up our own training centers all over the world to bridge the gap of employability. But you know, this is not going to change at scale by one company at a time or one industry at a time. So I think we should be aware of that. There is nothing that industry collectively could do which would be sufficient to change and create the impact at the level and scale that it needs to. Only government and educational institutions can truly do that, because you know, today 90, 70, 80, 90% of those institutions are public institutions. And to make that change, I think it has to be a better partnership than it has been before. Unfortunately today, the networks are very informal on how people get to know what employers need, how do they select, who do they choose, etc. Those networks will have to grow. We need broadband. One of the things I go to the government about and say, for God's sake, put last mile broadband in everywhere, because without it, all this telecom revolution is not reaching the people where it's most required. If you had that, they would then be able to access curriculum, access jobs, access network. It would make a profound difference to our country. Apart from that though, industry is going out more and more. Skills companies are going out more and more. But you know, there is a substantial distrust of the private sector out there, because it's so easy to fire anyone in India at the white collar space. Right? It's easier to fire people here at the white collar level than it is in most parts of the world, not at the blue collar level. And therefore, I think these are issues where people feel that, you know, in the service sector, for instance, which has a huge demand for people, you also have huge attrition. And it's not just because people don't want the jobs, it's also because they feel I don't have job security. I can earn the same amount in the unorganized sector. I have to work terribly hard for the little money I make, 9 to 12 hours a day, and therefore attrition happens. And attrition has a direct linkage with productivity. Until we realize that productivity leads to competitiveness, that game won't change. And I think that's a long-term vision, and we've got to move away from short-term stuff into long-term vision. And the Skills Academy, we're trying to do a lot of training both on the corporate side, where we are working with some of the major private banks in India to provide them trained people and hiring and training people for them. And this training is very intense, sort of 3 months training in very complex subjects. The broader aim is to try and build an institution which can train hundreds of thousands of people every year in the semi-urban and rural areas of India. So we're already active in 5 or 6 states across India, Madhya Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, Bihar, UP, Orissa, where we are out training virtually in the villages. We're training in the service sector, so it includes retailers, hospitality, BPOs. We're also training in the healthcare area now, and then we hope to expand it to textiles and manufacturing. Ultimately, our aim also has to be to reach out into the unorganized sector, because that's where 90% of India works. It's not in the organized sector. So we have to reach out into them and figure out how we can help them get trained, get better jobs, get better careers. That's our aim. We're new, we're young, we're 2 years old. We've trained, 25,000 people, 30,000 people, and placed them. It's very interesting and it's very hard. We've lost, I lose, this is my personal fund, so I lose a substantial amount of money along with my partner. But we're making an investment for the long term, so we're very happy to be able to make that commitment going forward. And we're very determined to build an institution of scale over the next 5 years, which can really make an impact on hundreds and thousands of people across our country. And I hope solve some of the problems around, what the jobs entail, what are the skills you need, what is the networks you need, and work with government to change some of the way policies can incentivize people, change the standards and the level of training. There's so much to do. For certain types of people, but I really believe that there's a lack of awareness of flexi staffing and the staffing model. And I think this federation, the Staffing Federation, I hope, which is doing this wonderful conference here, can really take that up in terms of increasing awareness. So what does this mean? This is not about cheap labor. It is not about lowest cost. This is really about providing flexibility to people who need it, both on employers and employees side. It's providing expertise. You don't need, you may not need an expert in analytics or statistics or modeling all the time. Sometimes when you need somebody to build a website for you, sometimes you need somebody to be an expert for you in some other area. And it's about expertise, and if we focus on expertise, I think that's when the staffing model will take off very nicely.